Oh, absolutely. We must open our schools in the fall. We are falling behind in the world marketplace right now. It's a very competitive world out there. And if our children are not getting an education, then we're going to wake up and realize that they're going to be speaking Chinese someday. The Chinese have a stated goal of being the world's economic and military power by 2049. They're well on their way. We're going head to head with them on artificial intelligence, the virtual reality, 3D design and printing, and the race to the moon. And if we don't educate our children, then we're going to fall further behind. So absolutely get our children back into school. Absolutely get our businesses running again. And if somebody is infirm or susceptible to COVID-19, they can quarantine. But the rest of this economy and our schools and our churches and our business needs to get back to normal immediately. We're crushing small business, and we're doing a huge disservice to our children right now, and our children and our grandchildren.
I absolutely do. And since I mentioned earlier, I have children who are still in the home and did go through virtual learning. I can speak from the experience of it. So first, I think that I definitely agree with the Academy of American Pediatrics. And their comment was that schools should open. We just need to make sure that we open them in a safe manner for both children and teachers. So I strongly believe that. What I've heard from parents, I've spent a lot of time talking with mothers, and I've really heard three things. First, I think that there are a lot of parents who worry that they're being forced to choose if they were to have to go back to a virtual situation between work and being at home with their child, which is not a great place to be in. Of course, families that have means can make that decision. My worry is that families that don't may then have a child who left at home alone without guidance and unengaged in the school system. In addition, I also heard from parents and experienced this myself that children that have any outlying needs that might, whether it's autism, I mean, it could be any number of things, that a virtual environment proved to be very, very difficult for them. And in many ways, I would say disastrous for some families. And so my own kids, we've already received, they go to Catholic high school, we already have received guidance for this fall. And I feel very comfortable with it as a parent. They will have to have their temperature taken when they go to school. They will have to answer questions. They are going to have to wear masks in school. The order of their classes, their school day has been changed so that there is more time for social distancing allowed. So I think that there is a very pragmatic way to get our kids back in school, and I think it's pretty critical.
Absolutely. I do believe that public schools should reopen in the fall. You know, I have 5 children. 3 have graduated from college. I have one that's in high school and one that's in, and like I said, one in college. Anyway, they learn better in the schoolhouse. They get social interaction, and kids, especially younger kids, need social interaction. Of course, teenagers do as well. But not everyone is going to be able to do that because maybe they live with someone or they themselves as part of the vulnerable population. So we do need to offer another type of learning for them so that they can continue to learn. And so the unintended negative consequences for keeping the school closed, though, is that if we have single parents or both parents work at the same time, they have to make a really tough decision on who's going to go to work and who's going to stay home. Also, parts of my district, especially in Wyandotte County, do not have full access to the internet. And so there are people who use their cell phones, their hotspots, to get internet for their children. And as anyone knows and's ever used a hotspot, it's not always 100% guarantee, and it goes in and out. And so that will disturb the distance learning for those that are trying to, avoid the COVID-19. So in both scenarios, there's going to be challenges. We can't put a one-size-fits-all because it's a unique and different way of learning. But we need to look at all of those before making a one-size-fits-all decision on opening schools.
I believe schools should open in the fall because children need specialized help. We have a lot of students who need to be helped for, let's say, reading as an example. So Kansas City, Missouri now has, or last year, they had 14 reading specialists to help the K through second grade children. and they need that help during the school day. So typically, you're supposed to receive an hour of reading help every day for 3 years if you need it. And 1 out of 6 people have dyslexia. So it's really critical that that help is given to those children. And they're very, very unlikely to become seriously ill from COVID-19. I am concerned about the parents. I'm sorry, I'm concerned about the parents, but I'm also concerned about older teachers with pre-existing conditions. And so that's a concern, and I'm not sure exactly how that should take place, but I think it's around 85% of teachers are under 55. And so I believe those teachers would be probably safer there than potentially catching the influenza, as well as the children, some sort of flu. So they're safer than during the flu season.
So as I mentioned when we started in this race, because we're in this economic crisis, I think it really does matter that I've spent 15 years in the business community. So I have a direct appreciation for the struggle that they're going through and trying to continue to grow in a tough environment. I did spend the shutdown talking with businesses and small businesses in particular about their needs today and then where they see the needs 12 to 18 months from now. Near term, one of the things that I've talked about a lot in the Kansas City community is that I think a really important step that we could take is to actually put in place a payroll tax holiday to help businesses. That would actually allow both workers and businesses to keep more of their hard-earned money here in the near term. So helpful to the family, but for businesses, that would put them in a position to continue to invest and grow, hire more people. So that's a good near-term step. Longer term, what I've heard from businesses is that they're very concerned. They're concerned about liability. So we need to take that into consideration. They're concerned about absenteeism. So I'm also a big fan of, over time, putting more incentives in place, tax incentives, to really encourage business to help their workers develop new and different types of skills as the economy continues to change. So those are the types of things that I've discussed with small and large business.
Well, I'll tell you, since COVID-19 started, I have had the unique opportunity to have a great contact with the Small Business Administration. And in my last position as one of 10 across the United States, working with our small businesses as the Region 7 advocate, I was able to work with over 200 of our small businesses during COVID-19 time, helping them fill out the payment protection program and also helping them file for the economic injury disaster loan. And so working with all of those businesses, trying to get them the needed resources to continue their businesses. And then in regards to farmers, also, I would say in August of 2019, in that same position as Region 7 advocate, I traveled with over 24 farmers in Kansas, listening to them and seeing how different regulations were impeding their businesses, such as Waters of the USA and also the new trade agreement for the USMCA. And so listening to the farmers and finding out, I have such a great respect for them because they have to be meteorologists, biologists, know when to, the dirt, everything you can think about, and then run and be businessmen. And so, again, and not a one size fits all, but we need to provide the needed resources so that they can continue to operate their business, but also to open their businesses in a safe manner, not only for their employees, but for their customers.
Well, one of the things that I'd really like to see take place is the ranchers that are currently losing money raising cattle. I mentioned this to you earlier, but ranchers are losing $200 a head, and when they take their cattle to there's 4 large meat packers in the United States. 2 of them are from Brazil, and they're making about $1,500 profit on each cow. So in Kansas, we've had hundreds of ranchers that have gone out of business because of this COVID-19 and not being able to get the meat marketed like they were before. What was the other part of it? There was the ranchers and the small businesses. So The small business owners, I think, were unfairly closed by the government. I believe that we now know that if you put a mask on, and let's say you have some hand sanitizer at the entrance of the business, and you have people squirt their hands with that, that's where a lot of the germs are actually carried, unless you're sneezing or coughing, and then in that case you need a mask. But if we did that, some common sense things, we wouldn't have put millions of people out of business. And the majority of our people that are employed by small businesses, not corporations. I just think it's really unfair what's happened to people that have gone bankrupt. So I'm hoping that we get that straightened out.
So how would I work with him as a congressman at the federal level? Really, I think that's about leadership, and I would lead farmers and small businessmen to say, we've got to get back to work. I think fundamentally, the solution is getting back to work and not and no longer taking a step forward and 2 steps back like we did here in Kansas. We didn't have to wear a mask back in March and April, and now here we are in July, and we're told that we have to wear a mask, and it's mandatory. And of course, I hear one thing from Kansas City, Missouri's mayor, and I hear another thing in Kansas, and I hear another thing from a health department, and then another thing from Platte County, and it's all just very confusing. And who's right? And the answer is nobody really knows who's right. And so in the meantime, our businesses are suffering. People are out of work. 300,000 Kansans are out of work. 40 million Americans were out of work. Now that number's come down a little bit, but our unemployment rate's still around 11% nationwide. So we've got to get back to work. So the message to farmers and business people is, as your congressman, I'm going to lead you to get back to work. We had AOC KC brag about saving 1,000 federal jobs, like she thought that was a big deal. 1,000 federal workers when 300,000 Kansans from Main Street are out of work. Please give me a break. She's absolutely does not represent this district, and she needs to be replaced immediately.